The sludge and swamp makes extremely difficult as far as evacuation is concerned, the search is concerned, and also the excavation of certain areas. When the debris came, the swamp still amount, and this is as high as up to 40 to 50 feet, and eventually under this there was a market, commercial areas, the residential areas, and many could be fear trapped. However, since the numbers of the missing still not clear very much, but what the excavation could potentially do is just restore the connectivity, restore the roads, and possibly if they could recover some of the bodies, if that could be possibly trapped here. This is absolute swamp, and unless it is dried totally, even moving machine over it will be a difficult task, because if one machine gets stuck, you need another machines to move it out. Now when there is no road connectivity, one and only the air pocket, the air route is operational, which is bringing the heavy excavation machines here at ground zero in Dharali. In Dharali, this used to be a most occupied and busiest market. Now everything gone under the debris and the mudslide. And at ground zero, what we see only and only footprints of the devastation. Now the SDRF forces have brought in their sniffer dogs, and couple of these sniffer dogs, the biggest challenge for them is to find out any possibility of survivors. However, it's been 5 days of the disaster, and looking at the amount of debris and the kind of debris, because it's a sand and totally wet, absolutely, because of the moisture and the heavy weight, there is hardly any possibility to find any survivors. Now these sniffer dogs are going different ways, sniffing out if there is any possibility someone could be possibly inside the trap, because there have been multi-stories building in all these areas, 2 stories, 3 stories, and now it's a flat and totally market, absolute flat landscape here. The only footprints of the disaster and the devastation, that's make extremely difficult to find out survivor. But even the biggest challenge for the administration is to go for the excavation, make out routes, and seeing the visuals that surfaced after the devastation, if possibility they could recover even the dead bodies from these areas. These sniffer dogs are on the mission in Dharali. I'm standing exactly at 10 to 15 feet of the mud, which is now exactly looks like a daldal, and here it is extremely very difficult. Look at these SDRF persons who are crossing over this mudslide, and how it is difficult to carry out the search operations until you check every foot of this land. This is exactly another a disastrous point. Now the house where the SDRF persons are working exactly was swept away with the mud and force and the water, because it was eventually some 30 to 40 feet behind. The entire house was swept away with the force, and now this all landscape has become extremely muddy, extremely risky, and that's what the level of difficulties for the SDRF persons to carry out the search operation. Look at this, even the sniffer dogs and bringing any machinery in this landscape is next to impossible. So unless it is totally dried and terrain becomes tough, all the operations becomes very difficult here. So along with the sniffer dogs, these victim locating cameras are also being used, the highly sophisticated machines in a terrain and in a pockets where extremely narrow passage, and it is nearly impossible for the human effort for the SDRF persons to enter. Now these locators eventually go inside deep in, and they find out whether there is any possibility of the survivors or even a dead body. Remember, in these kind of tragedies, it's nearly impossible after 5 days to find out survivors. But what least can be done to at least recover the dead bodies of the people, because number of people that have gone missing in Dharali is still unknown, and now these all persons of the SDRF are on the mission. This house that was swept away, all nearly 40 to 50 feet, has now become a difficult task. Everywhere you see only a swamp, slide, mud, and amidst of all these difficult situation scenarios here, which is everything turning hostile for the rescue operation, the search operations remains one of the most crucial part of this operation. The NDRF is also amongst the agencies that is carrying out the search operations, the sniffer dogs, wherever it smells something possible. However, looking at this landscape, possibility of any survival is nearly impossible. But what makes challenging for the NDRF persons, if the sniffer dogs give some signal, they could at least recover the dead bodies of the missing persons. Remember, number of people who are still missing, and it is unclear what could be that number. So these NDRF persons who were airlifted from different pockets in Uttarakhand, and now they are on a mission mode here. So there are multiple challenges and multiple operations happening at the moment. Restoring connectivity, restoring the routes, electricity, and subsequent to that, now at a mission mode is carrying out the search operations here in Dharali, the devastated, totally devastated Dharali.